Here is a fully rewritten, original, cinematic story crafted exactly for Silent Soul Stories. Designed for a long YouTube voiceover, emotional, motivational, and flowing naturally like spoken narration. No headings. No dialogue formatting, just smooth storytelling that builds emotion, tension, and redemption. Snow drifted softly outside the Silver Pine Lodge, settling against the windows like the world itself was holding its breath. Inside, the air glowed with warm light, evergreen garlands, and the gentle hum of Christmas music that carried both joy and ache in equal measure. For Elias Crawford, Christmas had become a quiet ritual of survival, rather than celebration. He walked in holding the hands of his twin daughters, Harper and Chloe, their small boots tracking melted snow across the wooden floor. He expected nothing more than a warm meal, something ordinary to fill the space where laughter used to live. But the moment they stepped inside, the girls stopped, their attention fixed on a corner table where exhaustion sat heavier than any winter coat. A young woman struggled to manage 3 small bodies at once, untangling sleeves, brushing snow from worn shoes, and whispering comfort with a voice stretched thin by years of doing too much alone. Grace Holloway tried to smile as she settled her triplets into their seats, though the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. They shared a single plate between them, taking small bites like they were afraid the food might disappear if they rushed. Grace didn't eat at all. Elias noticed everything. The way she folded her hands to hide their trembling, the frayed edge of her coat sleeve, the quiet fear in her posture, the kind that comes from worrying someone might ask you to leave just for taking up space. It wasn't pity that tightened his chest. It was recognition. Harper squeezed his hand. Chloe tugged at his coat. Children saw things adults learned to look away from. Grace leaned closer to her children, whispering gentle instructions only a mother of 3 could master. Sit still, sweetheart. Just a minute. Her voice carried apology wrapped in love. One of the boys slid an empty cup toward her. Not demanding, just used to waiting. She glanced at her wallet, hesitated, then smiled softly and told him they'd wait a little longer. He nodded with a maturity that didn't belong to someone so young. Elias felt something crack inside him, the lodge filled with laughter and clinking glasses. But that corner table felt suspended in its own fragile world. Daisy, the only girl among the triplets, leaned into her mother and whispered a question so quiet it barely reached the air. Grace brushed her hair back and answered with words meant to reassure. Though the truth lived in the spaces between them, Chloe tugged Ilias's sleeve and asked why they were sharing one plate. He opened his mouth and realized there were no words. Simple enough. Harper watched the triplets, like she was guarding something precious. They're trying so hard, she murmured. And they were. Every movement Grace made was cautious, practiced, as if she'd learned to take up as little room as possible, in a world that rarely made space for her. Elias recognized that survival. He had worn it himself after the accident, after becoming a single parent overnight. After learning that grief didn't ask permission before settling in, the twins drifted forward before he could stop them. Their steps were quiet, hesitant but certain, like kindness had chosen them rather than the other way around. Grace looked up, startled, instinctively pulling her children closer, ready to apologize for something she hadn't done. But Daisy smiled shyly, and the tension shifted just enough to let warmth in. Children didn't need explanations. They reached out, comparing coats, pointing at the Christmas lights, laughing at nothing and everything. Elias watched from a few steps back, as a bridge formed where none should have existed. Grace hovered on the edge of panic, afraid her children might be too loud, too much, too visible. When a server passed by with a doubtful glance, she instinctively tried to gather the triplets back. Harper's small voice cut through the fear. It's okay. We just wanted to say hi. Grace froze. No one had spoken to her like that all night. Elias stepped closer, offering a nod meant to say she didn't need to shrink. She returned a hesitant smile, the kind worn by someone who couldn't remember the last time a stranger made her feel welcome. The triplets relaxed for the first time since they'd arrived. Hunger, though, didn't disappear so icily. Grace's smile faltered when one of the boys whispered that he was hungry again. She lied gently, saying the kitchen was busy, and Elias watched her stroke his hair to distract him from the truth. Daisy offered the last bite on the plate to her brothers, her stomach betraying her with a soft growl that echoed louder than it should have. That sound broke something in him. He saw the worn shoes, the tired eyes, the hands that shook when she tried to tie a lace that wouldn't cooperate. A mother too exhausted to tie? Her child's shoe hit him harder than any tragic headline ever could. When Elias crouched beside the table and asked softly if she needed anything, Grace shook her head too quickly. We're fine, she said, though her voice trembled under the weight of the lie. One of the boys tugged Ilias's sleeve and announced that his mummy hadn't eaten yet. Grace flushed with embarrassment. Ilias smiled gently. He's not bothering me. The truth spilled out not because she wanted help, but because she was too tired to keep pretending. She spoke about losing her job, about picking up rides when she could, about how tonight was supposed to make her children feel normal. For just one evening. The twins listened with the quiet understanding of children who had seen loss too soon, felt the walls around his heart shift, He didn't make a grand speech. He didn't pull out a wallet. He simply asked the server to push the tables together. Grace tried to protest. He met her eyes and said he wanted to. When the tables clicked into place, something changed. The children chose meals like it was the most natural thing in the world. Warm food arrived slowly, and the triplets stared at it like it might vanish if they blinked. Grace watched them eat with a mixture of joy and disbelief, her shoulders finally lowering as if she'd been carrying armor. She was allowed to remove for the first time in months. Elias sat across from her, not as a rescuer, but as someone standing beside her in the storm. She asked him why. He answered honestly, "Sometimes people just need someone to stand with them." Later, when the lights dimmed for a holiday performance and music filled the room, Grace checked her phone and paled. A late-night shift, a sitter canceled. Fear rushed back into her eyes. Elias recognized it instantly. When she said she might have to leave, his daughters whispered that they could help. Grace tried to gather coats, apologizing for needing to go, apologizing for existing. Elias stopped her gently. "It's Christmas. Let's figure this out together." The word together landed like a miracle. She asked why. He understood. That was when Elias finally spoke the truth. He carried like a scar. 2 years earlier, he had walked into Christmas dinner holding the same fear. His wife had died suddenly. He became a single father in a moment that shattered everything he thought he knew. Every holiday since had been about pretending for the sake of his daughter's loss. He told her, "Doesn't care about status." Grace cried quietly, not from sadness alone, but from the relief of being seen. The night ended outside under falling snow. 5 children laughing as if they'd known each other forever. Elias wrapped a scarf around Daisy's neck when he noticed her shivering. Grace watched with eyes full of gratitude. She didn't know how to express when her daughter asked if she could have a good Christmas. Elias knelt and told her she already was. And in that moment, it was true. They stood side by side, not touching, but close enough to feel something stronger than loneliness. Not romance, not promises, just the quiet understanding that neither of them had to carry everything alone anymore. Snow covered their footprints together, and sometimes that's how life changes, not with grand miracles, but with small acts of kindness that remind us we are still human, still connected, still capable of light. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like and subscribe to Silent Soul Stories, because even in the coldest nights, compassion is still enough to warm the world.